Okay, today we're here talking left-hand starter kit to LS with turbo and Powerglide transmissions. Okay, so I've got a setup table here with a heap of different gearboxes at the back, LS manual, we've got a turbo 350, a Powerglide, 4L60 and a 6L80. We've got the three kits that we can supply. First one here is LS manual. The second kit we have here is the turbo and Powerglide transmission. And then we have standard LS autos. Alright, I'm going to show you now why we do this left-hand starter conversion. It's sitting at the moment on an early Commodore front end with a manual steering rack, and you can't even get the front end to sit in the correct position without the steering shaft hitting in the middle of the starter motor. So these kits can work if you want to run a big turbo dump pipe out there, if you've got steering shaft clearance issues being right-hand drive, or room factor for pipes. Okay, we're just going to have a quick run through on the gearboxes and sizing issues if you haven't yet selected a gearbox for your project. Just show you tunnel clearance size-wise and all that. Cut this piece of tin out just to replicate some sort of trans tunnel, just to give you a bit of an idea. So over here we've got a TR6060 factory Commodore gearbox on an LS engine. We've got a turbo 350 to a Powerglide, 4L60, and then to the big berth of the 6L80, which will require tunnel mods on just about every car. Alright, we're down to the nitty-gritty part now. So we've got to fit our left-hand starter kit, so we've got to strip the engine down to suit our starter kits. So in all these kits, the ring, the starter motor, and the dowels are all the same, so it doesn't matter which one we pick. We're just going to go ahead and do that, get everything ready, and then we'll pick a kit from there. Now we're going to remove the starter motor, the dowels, to locate the gearbox. This engine's conveniently missing one, so that saves me doing that. And we're going to remove the spigot bearing. And in LS engines, you have to use a tool for it, because you cannot hydraulic it, as there's a Welsh plug in the end of the crank and you'll develop an oil leak. Alright, just to keep in mind, these spigot bearings can be an absolute pain in the bum. They can be really tight, so if it's taken a while, just persevere, you'll get there eventually. Okay, now we've got the spigot bearing out. It's time to start installing our kit. So I'll start with the dowels and tap them in, then we should be right to put the plate on. Now we fit our left-hand starter plate to the back of the engine, so we can loosely fit the starter motor and check for any clearance issues that you may have against the block, because if the starter's not sitting square to the starter plate, you'll have issues with the starter motor. So on this one, the starter motor's just fouling the backside of the block, I'd say, so the starter's not sitting quite square on the adapter plate there. So we're going to have to mark the engine itself and then put the starter back to find out exactly where it's hitting. So I'm just colouring in where I believe the problem is. So once I bolt the starter up, it'll leave a mark on the starter motor, so I'm able to see if that is the spot. Tiny. So I'll give that bit of buff off, just enough to take the colour off the top, and then we'll try again. Okay, so I put just a piece of old instructions in here to make sure it's clear, and it's clearing on that corner of the sump now, so that's all good. But with the light, I've looked around and it's touching on the back on a block here, which I'll have to buff a little bit off that, so I'll mark that while the starter motor's all bolted up. And it's a bit close up the front here, you might be able to see where it joins to the corner of the sump. So I'm going to have to remove the left-hand starter ring again and just give it a little sand in there, and then I think we should be pretty right to go. So I've pretty much just cleaned up all the rough casting edges along here, just to give us a bit more hope. So if I do it all, just clean the rough bit off, not go too deep on it all. I think we'll be pretty safe with that. Don't want to go too far because you don't want to damage your block. Okay, so we've just fitted it all up again. Everywhere's pretty good after we've just buffed that casting off. There's plenty of room around it, except for one spot where these wires go into the starter motor. We're fouling on this back casting on the block, so we're going to have to pretty much take that back flush with the bottom of the sump there, I reckon. So it's probably a good 5 mil, but it's only a casting nub, so it shouldn't really matter. We'll just buzz that back down and give us plenty of clearance, so we're safe. Okay, so we've got the starter and the left-hand starter ring all fitted up properly now. Just had to finish off grinding that nub off. It fits really well, got good clearance now. So it's time to fit our Rod Shop Turbo pattern flex plate. Now we've got them torqued up to GM specs. We got our torque converter locator. Just goes in the end of the crank there like. At this point you'd be ready to fit your gearbox in and converter into the car or whatever you got to do, put the gearbox on the back. I'm going to put the converter on now just so you can see where the spaces go and all that sort of stuff. It's easier to see without a bell housing in the way, and then I'll just slide a dummy box over the top of it. Okay, so we've got our Powerglide all fitted up. As you can see, we don't need to do a starter relief on these ones like we do on the LS series gearboxes. There's enough room in the turbos and Powerglides to have a starter motor there. If you do want to run a dust cover on these gearboxes, it's just a standard Turbo 350 Powerglide Turbo 400 dust cover. You'll just have to modify it around the starter, but you could figure that out yourself. Now you're at this point, you're ready to swing it into the car. All the best with your project. Thanks for watching.